Never say never, because limits, like fears, are often just an illusion. Michael Jordan. In life, there are walls that people spend their entire lives trying to overcome. But the strange thing is, not every wall is built of stone. Many walls are constructed from negative thoughts, memories of past failures, and voices of doubt echoing within our own minds. We often lock ourselves in an invisible cage, then call it a limit. We stand before a door that has never been opened, look at the lock, and conclude we have no key, when in fact, that door might never have been locked. Fear is a master storyteller. It paints scenarios of failure before we can even take our very first step. It whispers that we are not smart enough, strong enough, or lucky enough to achieve great things. Over time, those whispers turn into beliefs, and those beliefs transform into invisible chains binding human aspirations. The greatest tragedy is not failing after trying, but surrendering before a battle has even begun. What we deeply believe in will shape how we act. When a person believes they cannot, they will see thousands of reasons to stop. But when a person believes they can learn, grow, and change, they will find thousands of paths to move forward. True limits do not lie in the feet of the climber, but in the heights that their mind allows them to reach. Human history is the clearest proof that impossible is just a temporary word. From humans conquering the sky, exploring the deep ocean, to turning seemingly crazy dreams into reality, every great achievement once began with resistance against a limit believed to be unchangeable. Changemakers are not those who are fearless, but those who understand that fear is merely a shadow that appears before the light of action. However, this does not mean we must deny all difficulties or believe that everything is easy. Limits of time, knowledge, or circumstances always exist, but the difference lies in how we face them. One person sees a limit as a wall to turn back, while another sees it as a mountain to learn to climb. It is our attitude that determines the height we can reach. Do not rush to say never. Do not let fears of things that haven't happened write the story of your life. Remember that within every human being, there exists an unexplored territory, an unawakened strength, and a capability waiting for an opportunity to reveal itself. Only when we dare to step across the boundary of old thoughts do we realize that many of the limits that once terrified us were merely lines drawn in the sand, easily erased by a courageous step. Life does not grant us guarantees that every journey will succeed, but it always bestows upon us the opportunity to try, to learn, and to become better than yesterday. Keep your mind open, your heart courageous, and your faith ever alive. For sometimes, the most wondrous thing is not that we change the world, but the moment we realize that the limits that once imprisoned us never truly existed. Your success and happiness lies in you. Resolve to keep happy and your joy, and you shall form an invincible host against difficulties. Helen Keller. We believe that joy will come when we have the perfect job, greater wealth, recognition from others, or when all surrounding circumstances become favorable. But the profound truth of life is this: happiness is not a destination at the end of the road, but a silent flame burning within each person's soul with every step of the journey. True success does not begin with external victories, but stems from the inner world within. A peaceful mind can make wise decisions. A heart filled with hope can rise after every fall. A person who appreciates the small things in the present will possess a source of energy that no circumstance can easily steal away. Just like a tree with roots running deep into the earth, human beings can withstand the great storms of life when their inner self is nurtured with optimism and faith. Joy is not naivety in the face of hardship, nor is it the denial of the suffering that exists in life. It is a powerful choice of the soul. It is the ability to see a tiny spark of light on the darkest days, the persistence to keep a candle burning amidst the cold wind of adversity. Those with a cheerful spirit are not those who have never cried, but those who have learned to dry their tears and continue walking with a resilient smile. Our emotions have a profound impact on how we think and act. When a person maintains a positive state of mind, they are often more likely to seek solutions rather than dwell on problems. They see failure as a lesson, challenges as a teacher, and closed doors as an invitation to find a new path. It is how we interpret the events of our lives that creates either inner strength or inner helplessness. There are those who possess everything praised by the world, yet still feel empty because they build their happiness on things that can be lost. Conversely, there are people who walk through difficult days with nearly empty hands, yet their hearts are rich with gratitude, faith, and a love for life. They understand that the most precious asset is not in their wallet, but in how they perceive life. When joy becomes a part of one's character, it transforms into an invisible, yet extraordinary source of strength. It is like a compass guiding the way through the fog, helping us not to lose our direction when facing challenges. An optimistic spirit cannot erase all difficulties, but it gives us enough courage to walk through them. Stop searching for the key to happiness in the hands of others or in the perfect conditions of life. Return to yourself, nurture your soul, foster gratitude, and protect your daily joy. For when we master our inner world, we possess a strength that external circumstances can hardly defeat. The greatest success is not only conquering the heights that society sees, but also overcoming the fears, doubts, and insecurities within our own souls. When you keep the flame of happiness burning within, it will illuminate the path ahead, strengthen every step, and transform you into a resilient person before all the storms of life. Vitality shows in not only the ability to persist, but the ability to start over. F. Scott Fitzgerald. Human life is like a long journey passing through nature's countless seasons. There are days when the sky is clear, with brilliant sunshine illuminating every step. But there are also times when storms roll in, sweeping away unfinished dreams, bitter failures, and pain that seems impossible to overcome. In those moments, many believe that strength lies in enduring and continuing to walk. That is true, but not enough. An intense vitality is also demonstrated by the ability to rise from the ashes of what was lost and courageously begin a new chapter of life. Perseverance is a precious human quality. It is the flame that keeps us from giving up in the face of prolonged challenges. A persistent person is like constantly flowing water, with each small drop silently wearing down hard stones over time. However, there are times when the old path no longer leads us to our desired destination, when plans once deeply believed in are no longer suitable, or when doors have truly closed. At that point, strength does not lie in repeatedly beating on a closed door, but in the clarity of mind to find another door and the courage to walk through it. Starting over is one of the most difficult challenges for the human psyche. It requires us to accept that we have failed, lost something, or must leave behind a part of a past that was once very important. The ego often fears a new beginning because it means becoming an apprentice once more, walking with clumsy steps and facing the uncertainty ahead. Yet, it is precisely within that unexplored territory that new human possibilities find the opportunity to awaken. Nature is the clearest testament to the power of rebirth. A forest after a great fire does not remain a dead wasteland forever. From the layer of ash, sleeping seeds will awaken. Tender green shoots will reach up to greet the sun, and a new life will gradually take shape. It is the same for human beings. Yesterday's wounds do not have to become tomorrow's sentence. They can become fertile soil, nurturing growth, wisdom, and a stronger version of ourselves. Many confuse starting over with returning to the starting point. But in reality, no one starts over from absolute zero. We always carry with us lessons from our falls, experiences from our mistakes, and the growth tempered through difficult times. A person who once failed to build a dream does not return empty-handed. They return with a wiser mind, a sturdier heart, and a deeper vision. Resilience after adversity, the capacity to adapt and reinvent oneself, is one of the most vital traits that shapes a strong and meaningful life. The strongest are not those who have never fallen, but those who can look at their broken pieces, pick them up, rearrange them, and create a new, more beautiful picture. Do not fear new beginnings. Do not view having to redo things as proof of weakness. Sometimes, life closes a door not to end our journey, but to direct us toward a more suitable path. Every dawn is proof that darkness does not last forever, and every time we dare to start over is the most powerful affirmation that the vitality within us still burns. Perseverance helps us go far on our chosen path, but the ability to start over keeps us from being buried by the paths we have lost. When we learn to accept change, let go of things that no longer belong to us, and open our hearts to new opportunities, we discover that the greatest strength is not in never falling, but in always having the courage to rise and start once more. All judgment is relative. It may be right today, wrong tomorrow. The only thing that makes it truly right is the desire to keep it moving constantly in the right direction. Francis Perkins. We want to clearly distinguish right and wrong, good and bad, success and failure, as if life were a canvas painted only in black and white. But in reality, life is like a vast sky with countless shifting hues. What we believe today may change as our knowledge expands, as circumstances shift, or when we have the opportunity to view things from a deeper perspective. A judgment seemingly as solid as a rock is sometimes just a footprint in the sand, easily altered by time and experience. This does not mean that truth does not exist, or that we should live in skepticism of everything. The deep meaning of the quote lies in the humility of intellect. A mature mind is not one that always assumes it is right, but one that is always ready to re-examine itself. The more knowledgeable we are, the more we realize the vastness of what we do not know. Just like someone standing on a high mountaintop, instead of only seeing their own victory, they realize that in the distance lie countless other peaks yet to be explored. One of the greatest barriers to growth is stubbornness in thinking. When we cling too tightly to old perspectives, we inadvertently build an invisible prison for our own minds. The bars of that prison are not made of iron and steel, but of ego, complacency, and the fear of admitting we were wrong. We often defend our opinions as if guarding a precious asset, but sometimes what is far more valuable is the ability to let go of an outdated belief to embrace a larger truth. True rightness does not lie in never making a mistake, but in sincerity on the journey to seek the truth. An explorer cannot discover the ocean by standing still on the shore and claiming that what they see is the entire world. They must dare to set sail, accept unfamiliar waters, unexpected waves, and the possibility that their map needs redrawing. Similarly, human intellect is forged through continuous observation, learning, adjustment, and refinement of how we view life. In relationships, understanding also begins with realizing that our perspective is only one part of the picture. A word might stem from thoughtlessness in one person's eyes, yet be a silent cry for help in the inner world of another. An action today may be viewed as a mistake, but when we understand the circumstances and motives behind it, we can look at it with greater empathy. Therefore, maturity is not just knowing how to evaluate, but also knowing how to pause before judging. Life is always in motion, and wisdom must move along with it. A river stays clean because it flows constantly. If blocked, it becomes stagnant. The human mind is the same. When we stop learning, questioning, and correcting our misconceptions, we limit our own potential for growth. What makes a person wise is not that they are always right in every situation, but the courage to admit when they are wrong and the persistence to move closer to what is right. Today, we may view the world through the eyes of our present experience. Tomorrow, new experiences will give us a broader vision, and the beauty of wisdom does not lie in possessing the ultimate answer, but in always keeping the flame of seeking truth burning within. When we combine humility with the desire to improve ourselves, every mistake becomes a lesson, every shift in perception becomes a step forward, and every day of living will be an opportunity to become more understanding, kind, and closer to what is right. That is the power of a continuously growing soul, always open to the truth, even if that truth forces us to change ourselves. You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength. Marcus Aurelius. Life is a vast ocean with constantly changing waves. There are days when the sea is calm, and gentle sunlight reflects joy and peace within the soul. But there are also times when storms arrive unexpectedly, bringing loss, disappointment, unwanted events, and circumstances beyond human control. We cannot command the wind to stop blowing, force time to turn back, or compel the world to operate according to our own desires. Yet, amidst that chaos, there remains a domain that no one can violate: our own mind. Much of human suffering comes not just from the events that occur, but from how we interpret and react to them. In the same rain, one person sees gloom and blames the sky, while another feels the cool freshness that helps the trees thrive. In the same failure, one views it as the end of all hope, while another considers it a valuable lesson opening up a new path. The difference lies not in the circumstances, but in the perspective each person chooses. The mind is like a garden. If we leave seeds of fear, resentment, and pessimism to grow, they will gradually overrun the entire garden with the thorns of suffering. But if we persistently sow calm, gratitude, faith, and positive thoughts, that garden will bloom with flowers of peace and strength. We cannot always choose the weather that impacts the garden, but we can choose how to tend to what exists within it. True strength is not the ability to control everything that happens in life. That is an illusion that leads to constant disappointment, as the world always changes according to laws beyond individual desires. True strength lies in the ability to remain calm when the storm approaches, to keep kindness when facing harshness, and to hold on to hope when everything around seems to sink into darkness. Seeking safety by trying to control every situation, we worry about the future, regret the past, or spend too much energy trying to change things that are not ours to decide. But like trying to hold a flowing stream with our hands, the tighter we squeeze, the more tired and helpless we feel. When we learn to let go of what we cannot control, we do not lose power. On the contrary, we free up energy to focus on what we truly can change. The most wondrous thing about human beings is the ability to choose our attitude in any circumstance. We may not choose where we are born or every turn on life's path, but we always have the choice of how to stand up after we fall. A closed door can plunge one person into despair, but it can also become a reminder for another to seek a new door. The most resilient people are not those who have never faced adversity. They, too, have been afraid, hurt, and have fallen into the dark spaces of life. The difference is that they do not hand over the key of their soul to circumstances. They understand that what happens on the outside is only temporary waves, while inner strength is the anchor keeping the ship of life from being swept away. Stop wasting strength fighting things beyond your reach. Direct your attention toward your own thoughts, emotions, attitude, and actions. Every time you choose calm over panic, learning over complaining, hope over surrendering, you strengthen your inner power. Life will always have stormy days and paths full of thorns, but when you understand that your mind is a territory over which you have the right to rule, you will no longer be a victim of circumstances. You become the steerer of your own life's vessel, courageously sailing through turbulent oceans with peace and strength arising from deep within. You have to fight to reach your dream. You have to sacrifice and work hard for it. Lionel Messi. Every person is born carrying within themselves the seeds of aspiration. Some dream of glorious heights, some wish to build a peaceful life, and others spend their entire lives pursuing a great mission that transcends their own limits. But a dream is not a star that naturally falls into the hands of those who only look up at the sky. It is a towering mountain, revealing the beauty of its summit only to those with enough persistence to climb step by step over rough and challenging paths. Many love the feeling of dreaming about success, but fear the price that success demands. They long for sweet fruit, but do not want to sow seeds, water them, and accept seasons of drought. They admire the aura of a winner, but forget that behind that bright light are countless lonely nights, painful failures, silent drops of sweat, and moments of fighting doubt within their own minds. Fighting for a dream is not always a battle against the external world. Sometimes, the hardest battle takes place in the silence of the soul. It is a confrontation between will and procrastination, between faith and fear, between the drive to advance and the voice wanting to quit. Our greatest enemy is often not poor circumstances, deprivation, or the judgments of others, but surrendering to the limits we set for ourselves. Sacrifice is an inseparable part of any great journey. A seed that wants to become a great tree must accept breaking its hard shell in the darkness of the soil. A diamond must endure immense pressure for millions of years to be able to shine. It is the same for human beings. Our strongest versions are often forged through our hardest days, waking up in the mornings when others are still asleep, studying and working while everyone else is playing, letting go of immediate comfort to build a long-term future. These are all silent bricks, building the bridge to success. However, working hard is not just ceaseless labor to the point of losing oneself. Real effort is a process with goals, discipline, and understanding. A person can run very fast, but if they go in the wrong direction, they only move further away from where they want to be. Therefore, alongside effort, we need the clarity to adjust strategies, learn from mistakes, and constantly improve ourselves. Those who can delay immediate gratification often stand a better chance of achieving greater things in the future. They understand that temporary comfort can be traded for long-term opportunities. They do not let fleeting emotions dictate their decisions, but use reason and goals to guide every action. No path leading to a meaningful dream is entirely smooth. There will be days when you feel tired, doubt yourself, and wonder if your efforts are worth it. But it is in those moments that steadfastness is forged. A steel bar only becomes strong after passing through hot flames, and we become extraordinary only after overcoming challenges that seemed capable of breaking us. Do not just love your dream with beautiful words. Love it through silent actions every day. Be ready to pay the price in time, patience, failures, and even moments of loneliness. For a dream protected by sweat and determination will no longer be mere imagination, but will gradually become part of reality. When looking back at the path traveled, what makes you proudest might not be the moment you stood at the summit, but that you did not give up on days when continuing seemed impossible. For the greatest human victory is not conquering the world, but conquering the weakness within oneself and transforming a fragile dream into a life to be proud of. Energy and persistence conquer all things. Benjamin Franklin. Throughout life's long journey, people often admire grand achievements while forgetting the small seeds that created them. A magnificent castle is not built in a day. A majestic river is not formed by a single rain. And an extraordinary life is not created by a brief moment of brilliance. Behind every lasting success always lie two silent yet immense forces: spiritual energy and tireless persistence. Energy is not just physical strength or temporary enthusiasm. It is the invisible fire burning in the mind, the eagerness upon waking up each morning, the belief that small efforts today can create great changes in the future. An energetic person is like the sun behind dark clouds, not only illuminating their own path, but also inspiring those around them. They step into hardship, not with fear, but with a spirit of seeking opportunities to grow. However, energy, no matter how powerful, can flare up and quickly fade away without persistence. Many begin a journey with intense enthusiasm, only to stop when faced with the first obstacles. They are like great waves crashing hard against the shore, only to disappear, leaving the water flat as if there had never been any motion. Conversely, persistence is like tiny drops of water constantly falling on rock. Over time, it is this very regularity and endurance that can engrave deep marks on things seemingly unchangeable. Human will is trained like a muscle. Each time we choose to continue when the body wants to rest, choose to learn when failure appears, or choose to stand up after falling, we are making our mental strength more robust. Successful people are not necessarily those who always have the most favorable conditions, are the smartest, or are the luckiest. The difference lies in the fact that they maintain positive energy and continue walking even when the path ahead remains shrouded in fog. Nature has taught humans a profound lesson about the power of endurance. A tiny seed can pierce through hard soil to find the light. A giant ancient tree was once just a weak sapling that had to withstand wind and rain over many years to grow tall, not because they were strong from the beginning, but because they kept growing, bit by bit. It is the same for human beings. Great dreams are not conquered by giant leaps, but by thousands of small steps, repeated with faith and determination. The modern world often celebrates quick success, brilliant victories, and glorious moments, but few see the mornings of waking up while others are still asleep, the long nights of diligent work, the silent failures, and the moments of fighting one's own exhaustion. Achievement is like the snow-capped mountain peak that everyone sees, while energy and persistence are the rugged rocky paths the climber silently overcame to reach the summit. Even so, persistence does not mean stubbornly following a wrong path. A wise person understands that endurance must go hand in hand with the ability to learn and change. When roots encounter a rock, they do not try to break it with force. Instead, they find another direction to keep growing. True persistence is keeping the goal firm, but remaining flexible in the method. When life places seemingly massive challenges before you, do not rush to doubt your own abilities. Remember that humanity's greatest works all began with a small idea and were completed through countless days of effort. Nurture positive energy in your soul. Protect enthusiasm like a precious flame, and use persistence as tireless feet carrying you forward. Someday, looking back at the path traveled, you will realize that what created the miracle was not a single explosive moment, but thousands of moments when you chose not to give up. Energy helps you start the journey, but it is persistence that will take you all the way. And when those two forces merge into one, limits that seemed insurmountable will gradually be conquered by the extraordinary will of humans. The main interest in life and work is to become someone else that you were not in the beginning. Michel Foucault. Life and work, if viewed only as a series of tasks to complete or a race to achieve success, will become rigid and easily disappointing. But if we look deeper, we see a more subtle meaning. Humans are not born to remain in their initial state, but to be reshaped through experience. When a person begins any journey, they always carry invisible limits, inexperience, unnamed fears, and a narrow view of the world. This is not a weakness, but the natural state of beginning. However, what determines the value of the journey does not lie in where they started, but in who they have become after the friction of life. Work, in its deepest sense, is not just a source of income, but an environment that refines awareness. Every assigned task, every pressure faced, every failure or rejection is like a frictional force that helps us polish ourselves. If we initially react with confusion, over time, we learn to remain calm. If we are initially easily hurt by criticism, we gradually learn to analyze instead of reacting. If we initially work just to get things done, we later begin working with a value creation mindset. True growth is not when we achieve more, but when the way we look at the world changes. A person who once saw failure as the end can become someone who views failure as data. A person who once depended on external recognition can gradually find the standards within themselves. That is the becoming someone else mentioned in the quote. Not losing oneself, but upgrading oneself through layers of experience. Growth shows that humans do not have a fixed self. We are the sum of memories, environment, choices, and adaptability. When the environment changes, responsibilities increase, and awareness expands, we are forced to adjust our thinking to survive and grow. Therefore, change is not the exception, but the natural law of conscious life. The important thing is which direction we change in. There are those who change by shrinking. They become more cynical, more closed off after each failure. But there are also those who change by expanding. They become deeper, more patient, and more understanding after the same experience. The difference lies in how they interpret what has happened to them. From this perspective, life is no longer a journey to find an already perfect version, but a process of continuously reinventing ourselves. Each stage of life is a new version, not denying the old version, but transcending it in awareness and depth. Like a river, it remains the same, yet it is never the same water. The purpose of life and work is not to keep our initial self intact, but to courageously walk through experiences deep enough so that we are no longer that initial person. And in that change, if we still hold on to our core honesty, kindness, and a thirst for learning, we do not lose ourselves, but are becoming a grander version of who we are. To know is to know that you know nothing. That is the meaning of true knowledge. Socrates. Knowledge, in common imagination, is often viewed as a treasure chest that makes a person greater the fuller it becomes. People accumulate information, memorize facts, construct arguments, and gradually believe they are approaching omniscience. But the deeper we go into the journey of understanding, the more we face a subtle paradox. The more we learn, the more we realize how vast the void of what we do not know truly is. The human mind is like standing before an immense ocean. Every drop of knowledge we acquire is a drop of water in the palm of our hand. When we lack understanding, we might imagine we hold the entire sea, but as we learn more, we begin to realize the ocean has no boundaries, and the human palm is far too small. It is this very moment of realizing our smallness that is not a failure of intellect, but the first sign of a mature mind. That the more ignorant a person is, the more confident they are in their knowledge, is what we call the illusion of confidence. Conversely, those with deep and broad knowledge often become humbler because they clearly see the complexity of the world and the limitations of personal perspectives. A truly knowledgeable person is not one who always claims to be right, but one who constantly questions their own rightness. True knowledge does not lie in accumulating answers, but in expanding the ability to ask questions. A good question can lead a person further than hundreds of fixed answers. When a person begins to doubt their own understanding, they do not become weaker. Instead, they open up a larger space for exploration. It is there that intellect is no longer an imposition, but becomes a continuous journey of self-adjustment. The history of human thought clearly reflects this as well. Great thinkers were not those who proclaimed they knew everything, but those who dared to admit the limits of their time. It is this humility before knowledge that opened the door to revolutions in science, philosophy, and art. For only when admitting, "I do not know," yet does a human being truly begin the journey of seeking, "What can I know?" Realizing that we do not know everything also means we become freer. When we are no longer bound by the illusion of absolute certainty, we become open to other perspectives, eager to learn, and less restricted by ego. Humility in knowledge does not make us smaller, but helps us become more flexible in adapting to an ever-changing world. However, this does not lead to extreme skepticism where everything is denied. On the contrary, it creates a state of balance, believing enough in what we understand at the present moment, while remaining alert enough to know that this understanding might be incomplete. This is the very foundation of critical thinking and maturity in cognitive awareness. True knowledge is not a destination where we declare, "I know enough," but a journey where each step forward opens up new, unexplored regions. The further we go, the further the horizon of understanding recedes, not to tease us, but to remind us that learning has no end. And perhaps the deepest beauty of intellect does not lie in holding the ultimate answer, but in the humility when standing before the infinity of knowledge, where we know, yet are always conscious that we never know enough. As we advance in life, it becomes more and more difficult. But in fighting the difficulties, the inmost strength of the heart is developed. Vincent van Gogh. Life is not a straight road leading to eternal peace, but rather a journey going deep into the increasingly complex terrains of the mind and the world. In the beginning, everything seems simple. Faith remains intact. Hope is pure, and we believe that effort alone is enough to touch what we desire. But the further we go, that simple outer shell is gradually replaced by real-world collisions, where every choice carries a price, and every step forward is accompanied by challenges. Hardships are not signs that we are on the wrong path, but are usually evidence that we are diving deeper into a meaningful journey. A shallow life rarely demands much effort, but a life of depth always comes with pressure, responsibility, and encounters with our own limits. Like a diver descending into the ocean, the deeper they go, the greater the pressure. Yet at the same time, the beauty of the world below becomes all the more magnificent. Humans naturally tend to want to avoid difficulties, as instinct always seeks safety and comfort. However, adversity is precisely the most powerful forge of the spirit. A piece of metal cannot become a sharp sword without passing through hot fire and the forging hammer. Similarly, the human heart cannot become steadfast if it has never experienced the collisions of life. Every failure, loss, and moment of seeming collapse is an invisible hammer blow shaping our inner strength. Strangely, looking back, we often do not clearly remember the easy days, but deeply recall the times when we thought we could not go on, yet still managed to push through. It is precisely those moments that become the foundation for growth. Hardships do not take away anything of vital importance, so much as they force us to discover parts of strength we never knew we possessed. Inner growth does not come from absolute stability, but from the ability to adapt after an event. The more a person knows how to rise after failure, the more resilient they become in the face of new upheavals, not because they no longer feel pain, but because they have learned to turn pain into material for growth. In every healed wound, a part of awareness is expanded. Life, in the final analysis, is not a journey to eliminate difficulties, but a journey of learning to walk through them. Without darkness, we would never understand the value of light. Without challenges, inner strength would remain asleep in a state of potential, never to be awakened. The human heart becomes strong not through external words of encouragement, but through the very process of overcoming its own limits. Every time we dare to face instead of escape, continue instead of quit, and believe instead of doubt, our inner force is reinforced by a new layer of depth. As you advance deeper into life, do not be surprised when the road becomes rougher. That is not a sign of injustice, but a sign that growth is taking place. For only by passing through the hardest stretches of the road do we truly understand that our strength lies not in never falling, but in the ability to rise more times than life can make us fall.